Awesome. Well, welcome in everybody. We're going to get started here in just a moment. We'll give a few seconds here for students to populate in. My name is Brady. I'm an associate director of admission here at PLU. I'm going to be a little bit of a moderator tonight, but really shine the light on our pre-law program here at PLU with Dr. Michael Artime and a couple of our current students. I'll let them introduce themselves. And the way it'll kind of run tonight, we do have our Q&A function available. So if there is anything that pops up, throughout the presentation, or just as conversations going, please feel free to drop those questions in the Q&A and I'll monitor that. But otherwise, we want it to hopefully be more of a conversation of sorts, and just provide you a glimpse into what life is like here at PLU as a student in this pre-law advising program. But with that being said, we can go ahead and jump right in, just to be cognizant of time tonight and wanting to make sure we're sticking to that 6 to 6:45 timeline though. So if the three of you all want to go ahead and do an introduction of yourself, for Zachary and Lily, maybe more so, name, year in school, what you're majoring in, and any potential extracurriculars that you're involved in, and also where you're from is always fun to know. And then for Dr. Artime, obviously your role at PLU and maybe how long you've been there and maybe what brought you to PLU, really briefly though. But we'll have Dr. Artime start really quick.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Dr. Michael Artime. I'm the chair of the political science department, and I've been at PLU since 2016. I came to PLU. I came as a visitor. I was just here temporarily at first, filling a hole in the political science department when my wife had gotten a position in the psychology department. And I really loved it here, and so wanted to stay. And when that became a possibility, was really excited for the opportunity to make an academic home here at PLU and to become part of the family at the university. And I'm also, in addition to teaching in political science, one of the pre-law advisors. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment, but I'll let our students introduce themselves as well.
Zach, you want to have you go first?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Zach. I'm a fourth year here at PLU. My major is political science with a minor in pre-law. I'm from Junction City, Oregon, so a little kind of out there, but I came to PLU kind of looking for the opportunity of kind of looking for the next steps for law school. And so when I was introduced to Professor Artime through the political science department, and he mentioned the pre-law program, it was a no-brainer. And so I'm really excited to kind of share my story so far and help anybody out with any questions they might have.
Thank you. And Lily?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Lily. I'm a fourth year at PLU. I'm a history major and a pre-law minor. I'm from Northfield, Minnesota, so a little further away. And I actually so I came to PLU as a transfer. I did my first 2 years of university at a university in Minnesota. And I came to PLU because I just really liked the environment here. And I can talk more about that, but yeah, I just really liked the people and the professors I met and the program that I wanted to do. So history and pre-law, they're both very interesting to me. And yeah, that's pretty much that.
So, cool. Dr. Artime, if you want to jump right on in,
Sure.
we'll do some more of the Q&A as the event keeps going.
Okay, that sounds great. So we've already done some introductions. I'll introduce you to one other person who's important in this as well. So I am one of two pre-law advisors. The other pre-law advisor is Ralph Flick, who teaches in the School of Business. And he's an excellent resource for folks who are considering law school. He's a practicing attorney, teaches the business law class in the business department. And it's just a tremendous resource. And as a pre-law advisor, he's gotten more into kind of national leadership within pre-law organizations, and so really has a sense for what pre-law programs need in order to set students up for success, both in their undergraduate career as well as they prepare to move into law school. So let me talk about, there's kind of two facets of pre-law um, at PLU. So one is the pre-law minor, and the pre-law minor is designed to help students develop skills that might be useful in law school. So we didn't come up with these skills ourselves. These skills were suggested by the American Bar Association, which is the professional organization for all lawyers throughout the country, and they essentially say that you need to develop skills in analytical reasoning, ethics, communication, and close reading. So in terms of analytical reasoning, that is in the PLU context mostly kind of math and economics. And there's even, if you look at the LSAT, which is the test that you need to take in order to get into law school, there's an analytical reasoning section that requires a certain way of thinking about problems that we think can be developed through the courses that we've selected in our analytical reasoning component of the minor. In ethics, you're taking sort of religion or philosophy courses with a bent toward helping you think about ethics in a professional context, which is important for those who would be joining the legal profession. Communication, obviously, is important, but not just oral communication. Written communication is also incredibly important. And so there's an opportunity to pick a type of communication class that you think is going to help either build your oral or written communication skills. There's a number of people in the legal profession who, don't end up in the courtroom. As Ralph will willingly tell you if you meet with him, he's never stepped foot in a courtroom as a lawyer, but he writes a lot and reads a lot, which leads us into the next category, which is close reading. And that is developing the ability to read difficult texts and find meaning within those texts. And so there we ask students to take either religion or a history class, or an advanced literature class where they're reading text, which is at first glance kind of difficult to understand, but can be really rewarding as you pull apart meaning from that. And that is something that, regardless of what kind of position you take in the legal profession, you're probably going to be reading difficult text and trying to figure out how that text applies to a specific context. And these classes will help you do that. And finally, just kind of jumping back up to the top, we wouldn't want to have a pre-law minor where you took no classes that had anything to do with law. So there is also an opportunity to take one of many different classes that we offer at PLU related to the law. A number of them are in the political science department. I'm teaching a class on constitutional law right now. Both Zach and Lily are in that class, so they can tell you about it. Maybe if they want to be really honest, I could drop off the call for a second, but I think it's going well. And we teach constitutional law, civil rights class. We teach a judicial politics class. We teach a class on mass incarceration. All of those apply to the minor. There's also a business law class, which again is taught by Professor Flick, which counts here as well. So this is one part of, and I've included the link that you can use to go and check out our website. But in addition to the pre-law minor, we have an advising program, which doesn't require that you take any specific set of classes. So regardless of whether you choose to minor in pre-law, there is the opportunity to get support from us as advisors as you are preparing for law school. So to talk a little bit about pre-law advising, we start with an application process where, and it's not it's not a process where you're going to apply and not get in. But we have some information that we want to gather from you just so that we can best prepare you for law school, so that we can learn a little bit more about you. We have a general requirement that you meet with us once per year, so that you can check in and we can see whether you are on track or not. Certainly, our meetings with folks increase in in the amount of times that you meet with us as you get closer to graduation and you're applying to law school or trying to think about where it is that you want to go to law school. And you continue to work with your regular academic advisors in whatever major you want. We're just kind of supplemental advising. So we exist on top of whatever other advising you do with the advisor in your major. And important in that is that pre-law students can major in anything they want. So it is often true that a lot of political science majors major in political science. So this is law school admission by majors. So political science is definitely the most popular major, but that's not because political science majors are like the best applicants. What you can see is that there's, political science average LSAT score 153, average LSAT score for someone in economics is 158. I think the reason why political science is so popular is because there's a kind of natural overlap between people that are interested in government and politics and those who are interested in the law. So there tends to be they tend to be kind of similar people who are interested in those two things. But lots of different avenues can make you successful in law school. If you're taking an English class, you're doing a lot of reading, you're doing a lot of writing. That's also something that you would be doing in a legal class. If you're majoring in philosophy, that there's lots of kind of legal practices, legal ideas that find their roots in the philosophical traditions of the past. And you can, it's really you can major in dance, you can major in theater, you can still apply to law school. Law schools are actually looking for folks who have a diverse set of interests. And ultimately, the two most important factors at the time that you end your career at PLU that will decide what law school you get into are your GPA and your LSAT score. So you should major in things that you really like, that you think you'll do well in. And when it comes time to take the LSAT, whether you're a minor or not, you should talk to us, and we can offer support to you throughout that process. So that is a little bit of what I had, but I wanted to leave most of the time to questions from folks. So happy to field those now and to let Zach and Lily step in as they want to add anything to that as well.
Sure. We do have a few.
Yeah.
Pull up really quick. And you kind of, it's fun to see the spread and variety of majors that students can pick from, because I think that sometimes, especially for high school students, can be a little bit of either a stereotype or they just they have to study political science or criminal justice, but there's so much else out there. But you did talk about
to study political science. You don't have to, but you could get to study political science.
Right. But it's good to see the advising, and kind of talking about the uptick in meetings and whatnot and helping students kind of prepare.
Sure.
In terms of that preparation, are there any specifics, for PLU that you can kind of touch on, and how we help support students in studying for that LSAT or in the process of applying to law school? Noting like GPA and LSAT are obviously very important. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. Some of that work happens among students. So there have been study groups with students who are interested in taking the LSAT, who have collaborated together. We point students in the direction of programs that might be useful in their study, including some free programs, so that some of the classes that folks take to better prepare for the LSAT are pretty costly. And so there are some good free options. We have some study materials that we let students use, and that they can give back to us. These are things that have been passed down um, by past pre-law advisee. And we often direct students. We get lots of opportunities sent to us for training with respect to the LSAT or admissions panels or opportunities to visit law schools, and we pass those along to students as well and make sure that they're aware of all of those opportunities.
Very nice. And either Zach or Lily, in your experiences as a student, has there been any of that that peer, kind of study support that you've, experienced or been a part of, or anything along those lines that you could touch on?
Yeah, so I can kind of mention here. Last year when I was starting to take the LSAT more serious and whatnot, I referred myself to Michael Artime, and he gave me plenty of study material. And like he's been saying, a lot of it is just kind of putting in the work. And so whether it's getting direction on what's the next step, or whether or not it's kind of setting a schedule and making a plan, I think that's the most important things. At least it was in my own personal experience. Kind of setting dates, figuring out deadlines. All right, when do I need to take the LSAT? What kind of score do I need to go for? How much studying time do I need to schedule each week? And so I think a lot of it is part of the pre-law program in which you can go and communicate with professors and they can kind of help you out, whether it is scheduling or trying to figure out, is it better to test online or in person testing center? It's just, they're very open, and it's a huge relief, especially when you're starting to feel a little bit of stress as you're kind of coming towards the end of your time, either at PLU or whatnot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I also think a lot of it is that there's a lot of students who are hoping to go to law school, even if they're not pre-law minors. And especially like within the poli-sci major, or if you just take a poli-sci class, or even like within my history major, I know a lot of students who are hoping to go to law school. So just being able to talk to other students is really useful, see where they're at, see how they're studying. Because a lot of it is on your own time. You do have to set yourself a schedule, like Zach was saying. You really do have to be pretty self-disciplined. But having that access to students, whether it be like through when Artime sends out emails about like things that are going on or whatever it may be, it's really useful to talk to other students about it. So yeah, just using all the resources, and PLU has a lot of great resources to help you out. So using all of them will be very useful.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's awesome to hear. In the kind of history, I guess, of our pre-law advising and whatnot, and maybe even more recent years, where are some of the places that we see students going to law school? Do we have any partnerships, any specific connections? Is it just pick and choose random, and maybe how does that process kind of work?
We tend to have students apply to places within the region. And so often on the West Coast, but I kind of pulled up a list of places that students have either been admitted to or graduated from in the last handful of years, I think since 2018, 2019. So I can just read through a list of some of those universities. So Arizona State University, University of Arkansas, Baylor, Boston University, lots of UC schools. So University of California, Davis, UCLA, UC Berkeley. We've had students at California Western, American University, Appalachian University, Brooklyn Law School, University of Chicago, City University of New York. We've had students apply to and get admitted into many programs, and it's been cool. I've only been here since 2016, but I've gotten to through this position meet lots of folks who have graduated from PLU and who have went into the legal profession. And we're going to have an alumni panel on April 11th, bringing some of those folks back to PLU, and they include judges and defense lawyers and prosecutors and folks who have used their law degree to go into into policy. So we have a lawyer who graduated who became the Washington state superintendent of education, for example. We have folks who went and worked in the attorney general's office. So there's a long history of folks doing really interesting, diverse things with their law degree after they graduate.
It's awesome to hear. I know there was one more for sure so far. Are there any specific classes that students can take to help them prepare for law school, or would that be a pretty, open-ended kind of spectrum that they can choose from? Some were wondering about that.
Yeah, so we've tried to do that through the minor, is to collect classes that what we think is less important. We don't think it's as important that you take a specific class or like a couple of classes, but that you develop certain skills during your time at PLU, and you concentrate on developing those skills. And so that's true whether you do the minor or not, but we hope that the minor gives you an idea of what those skills are. So the ability to read difficult texts, the ability to communicate, practicing your analytical reasoning, developing a strong sense of professional ethics. All of these things, they don't get developed in one class, but they can be developed in a collection of classes. And so whether you do the minor or not, kind of focusing on how to develop those skills yourself during your time here, I think is important.
Yeah. That's good to hear. Not any specific one, but that ability to
there's not one. That would be great if there was one, but it's many. So
yeah, for sure. And I think maybe for two students, if you all could touch on maybe something in this realm, are there any co-curriculars, extracurriculars? I mean, obviously you both touched on the kind of self-discipline and that individual drive. I gotta study for things like the LSAT is one part to it. But are there things that prospective students, could choose to become a part of that you think could be helpful, either being a part of this pre-law minor or advising program, or just maybe wanting to apply to law school later on? Anything that you think might add into that overall experience at PLU?
Yeah, so when I got introduced to the pre-law minor a year or so ago, a lot of I was really focused on the political science major and kind of just clicking off different specific classes to kind of get through it. But when I was introduced to the pre-law minor, I was introduced to a lot more classes that would be kind of more interesting. So like I took a public speaking class, and that was a great opportunity of kind of taking the next steps and kind of finding my own self-confidence, especially when it came to reading very extensive text in front of people, and maybe kind of upgrading my vocabulary a little bit. I think that was a huge part of it, especially kind of when I looked at some of the more classes I took with Professor Artime in the political science department, whether it's just kind of doing the proper research and figuring out how to properly format an essay or respond to text. And I think that's just, PLU offers a great opportunity in which you can take a lot of classes that allow you, excuse me, oh, there we go. A bunch of classes that give you the opportunity to build these kind of core skills is what we refer to them as. And so that's kind of the reading, analytical reading, or being able to public speak, or being able to just argue with someone. That's something that we're talking about in a lot of my classes lately, is just being able to have a proper conversation when it comes to responding to someone that has a different opinion. And so I think a lot of classes at PLU offer these kinds of help upgrade these skills that you already possess from your time in high school or early on in your PLU experience.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Zach. Taking a lot of different classes at PLU is really helpful. It gives you a wider breadth of knowledge, and just you get introduced to new people and everything like that. So I agree with that. As for like extracurriculars that I myself do, I am a history major, as I've said. So I do the History Honor Society. which that's really fun. Again, as I kind of mentioned, there's some history majors who are doing pre-law, so it's always fun to like get to do activities with them, and talk through not only like our history major, but also the pre-law, like what our goals are, everything like that. So that's always a good one if you're in history, or I think you can even just take history classes and be in the Honor Society, but that's my plug for that. Um, I'm obviously a part of the pre-law minor, so whenever Dr. Artime sends out an email with stuff to do, I tend to always do those activities or whatever it may be, because that's always good to just help me myself learn more about like going into law school and law in the future. And then to also, again, just meet new people. That's always a fun aspect of it. And then I was thinking of just like fun activities I do like on campus that like it's just kind of a plug more for PLU, not necessarily the pre-law minor, but I have done like a lot of outdoor rec trips. I do intramural sports sometimes. So like anyway, stuff like that. You just meet new people. And again, like that's a big piece of law, I think, is like just being able to communicate with others. And so meeting new people, meeting different kinds of people, everything like that is really, it's easy to do at PLU, and there's a lot of opportunities to do that. So
Yeah.
I think it's a very good note, Lily, even if it's like, oh, this isn't specific to pre-law, or one type of law, but meeting different people and hearing and those different perspectives, or learning about different cultures potentially and what PLU has to offer. So it's always good to hear it from students instead instead of just from admission or anybody else. But that's very nice to know that there's those different classes you can take, and just being able to kind of find the ways that they intersect. Zach being able to take, a public speaking class, and I know for a lot of young adults, that's not the greatest strength in the world. So working on those skills and honing that craft is really cool. To know that you've had an opportunity to do that so far. I think there was just one more to this point, but were there any specific, or if it's not, exactly specific, but areas that you know of that students can potentially, pursue internships, that they can maybe do, any kind of research opportunities, whatever that might look like, that could be related to pre-law, either minor or advising, and how that can help them, getting to law school later on.
There are lots of opportunities for things like that, depending on what it is that you're interested in. If there's a type of law that you're interested in, we can help set you up with if there are alumni that we know, we can probably make a connection. But also we have a great office on campus, the Alumni and Student Connections, and they keep a list of lots of available internships. I have yet to send a student to them and have the student come back saying they couldn't find anything. They pretty well universally place a student in a really good opportunity that is consistent with what their interests are. So it's a real strength of PLU. So either you can make those connections through us, or you can make them through Alumni and Student Connections. In terms of research, there's lots of opportunities to pursue that. And we actually, as of this year, we actually have money to help students travel to conferences if they want to present. So we can advise students on their research, but we can also, once that research is completed, take them to conferences at places throughout the country, and they can share that research with others. And so that's a tremendous opportunity that we have for really the first time this year. And so we're really excited to have that available within the political science department, and look forward to seeing what other folks come up with in terms of research in these areas. But yeah, you will find no trouble making those kinds of, or developing those kinds of opportunities at PLU.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's very cool to hear, and exciting to hear that there's an opportunity to send students to conferences, and
Yeah.
that's such a maybe undervalued is probably not the right word, but students coming in may not just know about that. So maybe it's just that lack of awareness of saying, hey, I can put myself in a position to learn these professional skills before I have to jump into law school or move into a career opportunity after my undergrad time. to get their name out there in professional works and the academic world, and start building those connections on top of the skills that they're already learning inside the classroom and outside the classroom with some of those extracurriculars. Hopefully that's something that our students do, consistently experience as, wow, there's a lot more that goes into it, rather than just earning, a high GPA and an LSAT score, which is important, as we learned tonight.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot more to that overall experience than the degree at the end of the day, or a lot more that goes into it. I guess is what I was trying to get at least.
Yeah, we strongly believe, while admission, really kind of hinges in many ways on those kind of objective metrics. One of the reasons why we do what we do is because we think that, having more Lutz in the legal profession would be a good thing. That having folks who kind of adopt the mission of the university, the mission of care, for others and for their communities and for the earth, that having that perspective integrated within the legal community is really valuable. And I think as we see alumni come back and we hear what they do, we hear about the cool ways that they are transforming the legal community through their work.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, we'll give one last moment here. If there's any other questions that want to be dropped into the Q&A, please feel free. Zach or Lily, if either of you have a last second, piece of advice for these students, or one more, plug about why, maybe pre-law at PLU, please feel free to unmute and add that in before we wrap up tonight.
Yeah, I guess one thing I'd just say about the pre-law program at PLU is that it can be formed to how you want it. There's so many opportunities, whether it's the classes you take, the people you meet. You don't come in and you're given a set schedule. You have to take these 5 classes and this is it. You can come in and you communicate with advisors or other students of all different majors, which is really cool, to be able to not just be, restricted to your one major and you kind of have to follow them all the way through. You to meet everybody on campus. And with it being a small campus, you're able to recognize people all over the place, kind of meet them in all these different classes. So I think it's just really important to remember that this is a great way to not only meet people, but you're not set in stone. You're able to kind of pick and choose and, go with your strengths or fix some of your weaknesses. And so I think that's just something that people should keep in mind.
Yeah, again, I agree with Zach. But yeah, that was really well said. And then I think also one thing I kind of wanted to touch on was we talked about majors in this conference thing, but I think it's really important to, when you're deciding your major, like you don't need to like have it fit into the specific category of, oh, I want to go to law school, so it has to fit. Like I know Dr. Artime was mentioning this, but I chose history as my major because I like history. And I had no idea what I was going to do with that major. I was just I had gone from a nursing major at my previous school to a history major here. And so I just knew I needed something that I actually enjoyed and that I would just have fun doing. And so I then found like the pre-law program at PLU and learned more about law school for myself and learned that's what I wanted to do. But I just think you don't need to put too much pressure on what specific major you're on. Like if you know you want to go to law school, that's amazing. And you can do that, like we've said, with like any major. So yeah, just do something you enjoy, basically.
Very well said. I always tell students, you should choose something you're interested in. Otherwise the schooling, may not be the best. So that's it's very nice to know you can bounce from one thing to another, but you don't have to be confined, and making your own experience out of it is the best part of it. So awesome. Well, looks like we're wrapping up a couple minutes early. Just want to say thank you to the students who attended. Thank you to the 3 of you all on the panel for giving us a little quick insight into what pre-law is all about at PLU. And appreciate your time tonight. For the students, if there's any additional questions, please reach out to us in admission and we will find a way to get you connected to these folks, or others across campus, so that way you keep on learning. Okay. Awesome. Thank you all very much and have a good rest of the night.
Thank you.